What if Darth Sidious didn't get in the way of Darth Maul on Mandalore? How would this have changed the story? Hello and welcome to Vault Holocron. I'm Jonathan, and today I've got part 2 for my fanfiction of what if Palpatine didn't stop Maul on Mandalore. If you haven't watched part 1, I'd definitely recommend watching that first, as it sets up this video. Anyway, let's get into the what if. So, this fanfiction picks up months after part 1, with Maul and Talzin still at large. The pair had been waiting and preparing for the perfect moment to strike, and now an opportunity was about to present itself. Meanwhile, over Coruscant, Anakin and Kenobi were attempting a daring rescue of the Chancellor, who had been kidnapped by the Separatists. In this rescue, Anakin and Dooku had fought, and Anakin had decapitated the Separatist leader. Darth Sidious had just lost his right-hand man. News soon reached Maul and Talzin, and knowing the end of the war was imminent, the pair flew to Coruscant so that they'd be able to catch Palpatine off guard. To avoid detection, Talzin cloaked their ship, while Maul flew down to the lower levels of Coruscant. Talzin was eager to fight, but Maul reassured her that they'd be better waiting a while longer. He predicted that now Palpatine was more vulnerable, and the war was ending, that there must be a plan to destroy the Jedi. A plan that the Dathomirians could benefit from. Not long later, Order 66 was issued, and brutality and betrayal rippled through the galaxy. Sensing this, Maul and Talzin set off to take out Palpatine. On the way there, they effortlessly dispatched many clones, now understanding the scope of Sidious's plan. The pair marched into the Sith Lord's office, and he turned to greet them.
"I knew you'd show up sooner or later,"
Palpatine remarked. "You shouldn't have made so many enemies," Talzin replied.
"I don't fear you, witch,"
Palpatine responded. Palpatine reached for his holoprojector and contacted his new apprentice.
"Darth Vader, there's been an unforeseen development. Return to my office,"
Palpatine said.
"He won't be enough to save you,"
Maul commented.
"We'll see,"
Sidious said confidently. Palpatine produced a lightsaber from his sleeve and stood waiting for his opponents. Maul revealed a double-bladed lightsaber, and Talzin summoned an Ichor blade. Maul pounced at Palpatine, who effortlessly held his former apprentice back. Talzin then moved in, applying pressure. Sidious pushed Maul back through the Force and viciously attacked Talzin. Talzin went on the defensive and blocked the Sith Lord's rage-fueled attacks, until Maul leaped in to aid her. As Maul swung at Palpatine, Talzin backed up and shot smoky green balls of magic at her opponent. Palpatine skillfully blocked Maul's strikes and the Night Sister's magics with his lightsaber for a few seconds, and then projected a large surge of lightning towards Talzin. The witch conjured a shielding bubble around herself as Maul continued to swing at Sidious. Palpatine deflected and dodged these attempts, and then kicked the Zabrak away. Extremely enraged, the Dathomirians marched towards Sidious. Maul used his speed to force Palpatine onto the defensive, while Talzin attempted to kill the Sith Lord. Although Palpatine was successful in blocking and dodging the flood of attacks coming his way, he was beginning to slow down. The Dathomirians took advantage of this, moving to attack him from both sides. Desperate, Sidious lifted Talzin in the air by the neck, using the Force to buy some time to fend off Maul. However, Talzin fired surges of green lightning at Palpatine, who swiftly leaped away. Talzin continued to send emerald thunderbolts towards Sidious. Sidious blocked this with his lightsaber as Maul pounced towards him. With his free hand, Sidious used the Force to hold Maul's lightsaber back. Maul gritted his teeth and pushed harder and harder towards Palpatine. Talzin cackled and began to move closer to the Sith Lord. Palpatine saw the certainty on his oppressors' faces and began to grin. Talzin looked at Palpatine confused, but Maul soon understood. Anakin dragged Maul away using the Force, freeing Sidious. Palpatine quickly dived back into combat, challenging Talzin, while the newly titled Darth Vader moved to take care of Maul. Anakin jumped towards Maul, who was on the ground. Maul rolled away as Anakin repeatedly struck his lightsaber towards the ground. Using the Force, Maul picked up an ornament from Palpatine's office and hurled it towards Anakin's head. Anakin quickly cut this ornament in two, and Maul took the opportunity to stand up and brace for battle. Meanwhile, Obi-Wan and Yoda had just landed on Coruscant to track down Sidious and his new apprentice. Both of them sensed the power of the dark side coming from Palpatine's office, feeling the conflict, and so rushed to catch Palpatine and Anakin while they were possibly vulnerable. Back in Palpatine's office, Talzin and Sidious were clashing blades, aggressively swinging at each other. Talzin was using magics alongside her Ichor blade in order to match Palpatine's superior fighting skill. On the other side of the room, Maul was defending from Anakin. Anakin then used the Force to push Maul across the room and then pounced on top of him. Maul held the blade back in front of his face as Anakin pushed harder and harder. Anakin then twirled his lightsaber, flinging Maul's blade out of his hand. Anakin pulled his lightsaber back and forced it downwards. However, his blade was met by another. Kenobi stared at Anakin in disappointment. As this was happening, Yoda joined Sidious and Talzin. The Jedi Grand Master backflipped around, dodging strikes and applying pressure on Sidious.
How nice of you to join us, Yoda,
Sidious taunted.
Ending your orders,
Yoda responded. The three combatants locked blades. Meanwhile, Anakin and Obi-Wan fought as Maul prepared himself for more dueling. Anakin bragged about his newfound power, telling Obi-Wan that he'd surpassed the Jedi Council. Kenobi told Anakin that the power of the dark side was a delusion. Anakin hurled himself towards Obi-Wan, who held his former Padawan back. Maul then joined in the fighting, mostly swinging at Anakin. Anakin was deflecting these strikes while also trying to kill Kenobi. Obi-Wan was very defensive, waiting for an opening. Maul kicked Anakin away, and Obi-Wan used the Force to hurl Anakin even further. Maul and Kenobi then exchanged blows, with Maul viciously attacking Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan maintained a strong defense, and then, when the time was right, pushed forwards. Maul stumbled back, but quickly pulled himself together. Obi-Wan could see Anakin approaching from behind Maul, with anger in his eyes. Anakin charged his blade towards Maul's back. Kenobi pushed Maul to the side with the Force, as Anakin's lightsaber barely missed the Sith Lord. However, Anakin quickly flung his sword around, cutting Maul's legs and one of his arms off.
Don't get all righteous on me, my old master. You tried the same thing back on Dathomir,
Anakin exclaimed.
Yes, and you stopped me. Now I'm returning the favor. There's still time to come back, Anakin,
Kenobi appealed.
Stop lecturing me, Obi-Wan. The dark side has all I need,
Anakin shouted. Anakin grabbed Kenobi by the neck through the Force and slammed him against the wall. Obi-Wan barely rolled away as his former Padawan sent his blade diving downwards. Obi-Wan rushed back onto his feet, and the pair exchanged strikes. Maul called out to Kenobi, saying,
He's right, Kenobi. I sense fear in him, the kind that can only be satisfied by the sting of the dark side.
Anakin was angered by Maul's comment. Didn't the Zabrak know his place, he thought, believing Maul to be weak and pathetic. Anakin used this anger to push against Kenobi, pressing the Jedi against the wall.
I sensed that fear in you once. You still feel it, don't you? The calling, that nagging feeling, telling you that you could prevent ever feeling so helpless again.
Maul said to Kenobi encouragingly. Anakin pushed his and Obi-Wan's lightsaber closer to Kenobi's neck, applying pressure.
All you have to do is let go.
Maul asserted. Kenobi strained and pushed against Anakin. He forced out a single word in response to Maul.
No!
Obi-Wan grunted, starting to free himself from Anakin's hold. Anakin noticed this and kicked Kenobi back towards the wall.
You just have to be stubborn, don't you? Do you believe that this makes you somehow better than me? You're wrong. You don't know what it's like. Going days without sleeping, dreading the end of every single day, being haunted by the future. Knowing that when you close your eyes, pain is awaiting you. Countless nights I've seen Padme die.
Anakin cried.
And this was your solution?
Kenobi stated judgmentally.
This was the only solution. I thought you more than anyone would understand that. After what happened to Satine,
Anakin remarked. Kenobi felt a cold shadow crawl across his body, enter his veins, consuming him. He reached deep inside of himself and screamed,
At least you got a warning.
Simultaneously hurling Anakin across the room. Shocked, Anakin picked himself up and launched himself back towards his former master. Mid-jump, Kenobi grabbed him by the throat using the Force, leaving Anakin hovering by the neck. Maul smirked and reached his only hand out towards Obi-Wan. Maul reached into his pain and fed it into Kenobi. Anakin slammed Obi-Wan against the wall, freeing himself. The pair then thrusted themselves towards each other, locking blades. Meanwhile, Yoda and Talzin pressed into Palpatine. Palpatine sweated heavily, clearly struggling to hold back his opponents. Talzin and Yoda had been his two biggest fears in the way of achieving victory, and now they were both here, at the same time. Palpatine felt something that had been missing for a long time. True fear. However, to Sidious, fear wasn't the weakness the Jedi made it out to be. A desperate Sith is not to be underestimated. Palpatine knew he just needed to buy time for an opening. Palpatine kicked Talzin away and spun into an open area of the room. Yoda charged at him, and Palpatine shot a burst of lightning. Yoda deflected this with his lightsaber as Talzin rushed at Sidious with her Ichor blade. Palpatine leaned to the side, barely dodging the witch and sending Talzin tumbling to the ground. Talzin curled streaks of her green magic around Sidious's ankles like snakes and sent the Sith Lord tumbling to the ground. Yoda took the opportunity and dived towards Sidious, thrusting his emerald blade downwards. Palpatine turned in fear, helpless against the incoming blade. Yoda prepared for his lightsaber to make contact with Palpatine's body. The opportunity was now to end the war, to save the Jedi Order. However, Yoda's blade was met by another. Talzin had caught Yoda off guard, tossing him aside.
Stay back. He's mine to kill. I must avenge my fallen sisters.
Talzin screamed as she thrusted her sword towards Sidious's head. Having found a few seconds to gain control, Sidious sent lightning surging out of his fingertips. The Ichor blade was knocked out of Talzin's grip, and she barely managed to form a shielding bubble around herself. Yoda, on the other hand, hadn't had enough time to prepare for the incoming attack, taking the full force of Sidious's lightning. Yoda wriggled in agonizing pain, before being suddenly silenced. Palpatine withdrew his attack. Talzin watched as the smoke rose off of Yoda's body.
You fool,
Sidious cackled. Sidious then sent another wave of lightning, which was met by a similar, unnatural green surge of electricity. The two attacks combined, emitting a bright white light in the center. Sidious and Talzin each pushed forwards, trying to overpower the other. On the other side of the room, Obi-Wan and Anakin were in fierce combat, both digging into the dark side. The pair locked blades and gritted their teeth face to face. Anakin punched Kenobi in the stomach, and Kenobi cried out in pain. Anakin sliced Obi-Wan's lightsaber and pushed his blade towards Obi-Wan's neck. Obi-Wan grabbed Anakin's hand and desperately pushed away. Obi-Wan was backed into a wall.
"You can't stop me, Obi-Wan. I will not lose Padme,"
Anakin remarked.
"And what if you do? What will her last memory of you be?"
Kenobi questioned, while straining to keep Anakin's blade away. Kenobi's face suddenly dropped, and his grip on Anakin's lightsaber weakened. Thoughts of Satine flooded his mind as he realized what he was becoming. Anakin's blade moved closer and closer to Obi-Wan's neck. All Obi-Wan could think about now was peace. How could he achieve the peace Satine had always sought? How could he as a Jedi fulfill his duty to keep the peace? Obi-Wan's neck started to burn as Anakin pressed closer and closer to killing his old master. In a moment, Anakin felt himself hurled across the room by a force surprisingly powerful. His lightsaber flung out of his hand. Obi-Wan stepped forward, using the force to grab his old Padawan's blade. Anakin rose up and jumped before Kenobi again.
"I'm not going to lecture you anymore. Just consider what Padme would want you to do,"
Kenobi said calmly. For a second, Anakin was caught off guard by Kenobi's change in tone, but still overflowing with rage, he attempted to attack the Jedi. Obi-Wan stretched his arms out and sent items from around the office, hurling towards Anakin. Without his lightsaber, Anakin struggled to combat this, and one of Palpatine's artifacts knocked him out. Obi-Wan desperately hoped that Anakin would see things clearer when he awoke. Meanwhile, Talzin and Palpatine were still shooting lightning at each other, with Maul trying as much as he could to feed power into his mother. Both Talzin and Palpatine were tiring, and they were suffering as the heat from the lightning blasted onto their faces. As Obi-Wan approached, blinded by the light, Talzin prepared to make a bold move. She knew she needed to act fast to take out Palpatine, and had decided that now was the time. Waiting longer would be too risky, with how exhausting this battle had been for her. Smoke rose off of Talzin while she was still firing lightning. She lifted up an object from Palpatine's desk and rose it behind the Sith Lord. She then lit the object on fire and launched it towards Palpatine at an extremely fast speed. However, Palpatine dodged this attack, having sensed it coming through the Force. On top of that, Palpatine had advanced on Talzin as she had been making her move. Some of the fire from the object had latched onto Palpatine's sleeve, and the Sith Lord turned it blue and sent a wave of flames at the witch. This attack broke Talzin's control as she looked around in desperation and pain. Sidious spun towards her as she regained her bearings, but he was stopped before he could kill her. Kenobi had stepped in.
"The fight's not over yet, Talzin. We'll take him together,"
Obi-Wan shouted. Obi-Wan heard Talzin slowly get up as she agreed to Obi-Wan's offer. However, Talzin's support was taking longer to arrive than Kenobi had hoped. While Kenobi was amazing at defending from lightsaber attacks, he was no match for Palpatine by himself, and at this point, he was already really feeling this. Palpatine played into all of Kenobi's weaknesses and vulnerabilities, which had accumulated in his battle against Anakin, and soon Obi-Wan was overwhelmed. Where is Talzin, he thought. As Obi-Wan had been fighting, a green glow had been building on Palpatine's face, coming from behind the Jedi, but for some reason, Talzin had been holding off her attacks. It was as if Talzin was building up to a bigger attack. Suddenly, Kenobi became overwhelmed by Sidious and couldn't hold off the Sith Lord any longer. Palpatine's crimson blade tore through Obi-Wan's chest. As Obi-Wan's body slumped to the ground, Palpatine looked ahead for Talzin, but she was nowhere to be seen. All that remained was the signature green smoke of her magic. In an instant, Palpatine's senses kicked in as he felt a presence behind him. However, it was too late. Talzin plunged an Ichor blade into the Sith Lord's back. Satisfied, Talzin stepped away and rushed to Maul's side. Maul was heavily injured, but Talzin knew he had survived worse. Talzin restored her son with magic, and Maul quickly prepared to rule. He contacted the Mandalorians and each of the crime syndicates. Now Maul was in charge, and no one would question him. However, there was one small detail that bothered Maul. Anakin had not been found in the aftermath of the battle. Anyway, that's it for this What If. I hope you enjoyed it. While I initially intended this to be the ending of the story, I would be open to a part 3 if you really wanted one, as I do have a few ideas for what I would do. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Let us know what you thought of the What If in the comments, and we hope to see you later at Volt Holocron.